Hey, welcome everybody. Welcome to the Spiritual Underground podcast. As always, I am your host, Dan Reeves. I will let you know in case you're just coming along this podcast, it is primarily 12-step recovery. But I do, on a fair occasion, have folks that come to me, and I kind of, as I said to my guest, our program tells us that we need to continue to grow spiritually, and I don't think that's limited necessarily to alcoholics and addicts, but we certainly do, and that's what our teaching says. But I have these guests that's coming and bringing modalities in different areas of spirituality and different looks at it, and that's one of the best things about Alcoholics Anonymous in my mind and 12-step recovery in general is that I was encouraged to develop a relationship with a power greater than myself. And I wasn't like pushed or formed or led anywhere on what that was to be. That was for me to find out on my own. And that's actually what it says in the book, that's exactly what this book is about. This book is to get you attached or in relationship with a power greater than yourself that can solve your problems. And then even better than that, we don't reject each other for what we choose. We get together and we're a cohesive group, and everybody believes something different, and that's a little unusual out in the world. But I also have these guests that are I like to think of them. If you look on TV and you watch the wrong channels and stuff, it looks like the world may be going to hell in a handbasket, and I don't find that to be the case. I have these people coming in that are forces for good that are carrying this positive message and helping people and making service the main point in their life, and they're bringing that what they taught, what they were taught, what they learned, and offering it to others in case it may be of help to them. And I love being a part of this force for the good in the world. So. Uh, Today, I will let you do your own. I won't try to tell the people who you are. You say Yosi.
Yosi, you got it, Dan.
All right. I do see that you are a PhD, um, and I see your book behind you, so you're obviously an author as well. And Oleg has sent me a whole list of stuff about you, but I'll just let you talk about you and let you tell us how you ended up here across the
How many
screen from
days
me.
do we have for me to talk about me?
As many as you want. I don't have a deadline. Sometimes my podcasts do go long. And that's what I was saying about a hard stop a little bit ago, because sometimes people have something to go and we get to talking and time just flies, and you blink your eyes and it's 2 hours later and it's like, whoa. So I try to help people if they do need to quit at a certain time. I keep an eye
That's
on the
good. Thank
clock.
you. Thank you. But you're giving me enough rope to hang myself. Uh,
Good.
Talk about myself. Well, I'm just torn. I mean, if you just say who and what am I, whatever, I mean, I'm a psychologist. I'm a clinical psychologist. I work with individuals and I work with couples. And I work as a CEO leadership coach. And I am an author of this book behind me, Spiritually Intelligent Leadership: How to Inspire by Being Inspired.
Mm,
And all of this emerged out of my doctoral research on spiritual intelligence, defining what is spiritual intelligence and how to measure it. I created the first validated psychometric instrument for measuring it, and then showed that it has many benefits. Just like people have heard of emotional intelligence, and
hmm
it's been shown that emotional intelligence is produces better leaders, better quality of life, happier people, more connected, less lonely, etc. So my research was on spiritual intelligence to show that it was complementary and multiplicative. It kind of turbocharges your emotional intelligence. So that was my research, and that's my passion and my calling, and my personal mission is to awaken greater spiritual intelligence in myself and the world. And as I said, I do that with working with people one-on-one as their therapist or leadership coach, or with couples who want to build a sacred, passionate relationship where the relationship is in service of something greater, not just their basic, human needs that we all have for companionship and what have you, and sexuality, etc. We do with our partners. But when we enter a relationship as a sacred ground where we have greater purpose, and then we could really wholeheartedly be devoted to our partners, then we take that relationship to a much deeper level and greater meaning, etc. So that's what I do. I mean, I could tell you a little bit about the history and how I got here and why this is like
Yeah, I'd like to
everything
hear.
you
I like
want.
to. I actually like to go back and say, like, where are you coming to me from right now?
Well, right now I'm coming to you from Northern California, near
Okay,
the city of Santa Cruz, and
is that
uh,
home?
that's home. Yeah, that's
Okay,
home,
all right.
and I'm near the ocean, so I am looking at the sparkling waves in the
Oh, very
background
cool.
there, and
Nice.
I'm a blessed person. So,
Yeah.
and
Where were you born?
I was born and raised in Israel, Tel Aviv, Israel,
Oh,
and at age 18, like all good young men, I was drafted into the military of 3 years of mandatory service, even though I was kind of pacifist in my leaning and kind of was a shy math and science nerd. But to my surprise, I found myself thrown into leadership positions and attained the fastest promotion record in the history of my regiment and
oh,
won
wow.
all these leadership awards. Fortunately, thank God, it was peaceful time in Israel, not like the horrific wars that are going on there now, which are just
Yeah.
heartbreaking. But anyway, that got me. So I won all these awards and I excelled at it. But this command and control model of the military really chafed at my soul. And even though the military is a great place to create cohesion among a group of people where you feel your life depends on your friends and your comrades and through that intensity, but it also stifles individual creativity and all kinds of things, doesn't bring
Hmm.
out the best in people, because when you're in battle, you don't have time to take people into an offsite and contemplate the strategy or whiteboard brainstorm. You're like,
Yeah, and
you run.
individuality is really not encouraged. You got to function as a group and as a like a single entity.
Exactly. And someone has to call the shots, as they say.
Yeah.
So, while it's efficient in battle, and it can sort of work in the pre-industrial age or even in the industrial age where you can tell people what to do and how to assemble things and whatever. A lot of these jobs have been automated and we have, robots and all of it. So, these days, more people are working as what's called knowledge workers, where it requires judgment and creativity and whatever. So obviously, you can't just run a business or an organization, for profit, nonprofit, based on command and control. You need people's alignment behind the purpose and the vision that organization is there to serve. And you want their judgment and initiative and empowerment and creativity and sense of belonging into that unit so that there's a sense of community. And then there's a greater alignment, more creativity, greater engagement, more energy. So all of that kind of led me to be a founder. I started and ran a couple of companies. I took both of them public. But in the midst of one of them, I had a crisis, a personal crisis. First, I got depressed. I overworked. The internet came. It threatened our business model. I didn't know how we are going to survive. I persisted. We turned it around. We became a high-flying internet company and then went public. But, I was trying to relax one day and I was getting a massage. And it took me into a deep place and I was relaxing. And then my ego dissolved and I felt like I was just part of this seamless field of consciousness and my body was made of consciousness and I was part of this one field and I was looking open my eyes through the face cradle and the floor looked like it was inside of me,
Mm.
so everything was kind of became one, and as they say, and but it blew my mind, it blew my circuits, and it threw me into a manic episode, which was very difficult being a public company CEO. My board freaked out, my team freaked out. So they put me on a quote unquote voluntary leave of absence, which was
Oh.
nothing voluntary. And then the
Mhm.
headline stories in the New York Times, Wall Street Journal was that yes, he became emotionally unstable, he lost it, which was very shameful. I was excommunicated from the circle of people that were the Silicon Valley movers and shakers that I was a
Mm.
part of. And all of a sudden people weren't returning my phone calls or my emails, and I was kind of wiped off the map. So it was very
Wow.
painful,
Yeah.
traumatic experience because the company was my baby. But anyway, so we were talking earlier about something horrific is a great blessing in disguise. And that's what it was, because it got me to ask these deeper questions about why was I so identified with the business? Why did I burn out? Why did I get depressed? Was this awakening experience, spiritual awakening experience, real? Or was it all delusional? And was I just being psychotic and thinking these things? So that got me to go back and study this field called transpersonal psychology, which integrates psychology with spirituality.
Hmm.
And then I discovered this term spiritual intelligence, and I was very interested in it, but nobody really defined it or knew how to measure it. So that's what got me on this path to research and discover what is spiritual intelligence, how to measure it, and then I think it's the missing piece in our world. We have IQ, we have human cognitive intelligence that landed us on the moon, split the atom, deciphered the genome. Now we have AI that's smarter than many of us, including me. We have emotional intelligence, EI, and we learned how to monitor our emotions and connect with some other people and manage our emotions. But yet the world, seems chaotic. You have a lot of polarization and division. There's environmental concerns, there's wars. So I think the missing piece is to understand our interconnectedness and our part of this oneness. You can call it, a higher power or whatever, God, if you want to use that language. And when we remember ourselves, remember who and
Hmm.
what we are, so we become members in that part of that oneness, in that web of life. And then just like a cell in the human body has an individual identity, has an individual function, each cell in our human body emerges out of the same stem cell and the same DNA. But somehow one cell decides to become a retina in my eye, and a different one is a thyroid, another one is a neuron, another one is a heart, another one is a fingernail. So, but they all assume a unique role, and they take care of their individual integrity. If you look within a cell, it's incredible complex machinery that we don't understand how a single cell
Hmm.
organism first came to be. I mean, it's just totally improbable from random, it just that's so, but that's a whole debate between intelligent design and whatever.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, so you look within each cell, it's incredibly complex. But each cell comes from the same DNA and differentiates, and it looks completely different. And it then is part of an organ. So it knows, okay, I'm part of the lungs, and this is my function, and I have to take care of myself, but I have to do my function, my role within my team, my community of cells, which are all in the lung. And then the lungs has to function in the context of the whole organism, so the organism, um, doesn't get sick. So I think same with us as individuals. We have to take care of our individual selves, and at the same time we have to understand our role within the greater web of life and live in service of that, because it's crazy making to think that I can survive as an individual cell when the body gets cancer or the body dies. So um, I'll stop there, but I just do want to highlight. I know I don't know too much about the 12-step program. I visited a couple of meetings, and but I know that there's all this process around being a purpose and being of service. I mean, it's admirable how people get sponsors that are there for them 24/7, and people that have suffered through the thing, they know what it takes, what they go through, and then so they become wounded healers. I mean, people
Yeah.
that have gone through the pain and the suffering, then they want to share their gift and help others. And that gives them their life meaning and purpose. And a lot of it is about trusting and surrendering to this higher power. So I'm just rattling right now some of the qualities of spiritual intelligence: purpose, service, trust, gratitude. I think gratitude is one,
Yep.
forgiveness, compassion. And you guys go through this 12 steps. In essence, you're working through a lot of the qualities that came through my research as spiritual intelligence.
Well,
So,
that is one thing that I see as I talk to these people, and I feel very fortunate that I get, because like I live in this little town called New Albany, Indiana, and ultimately it's right middle of the Midwest, southern Indiana. It's right across the river from Louisville, Kentucky, so everybody usually knows Louisville. I don't tell people, but I landed here and ended up with this wonderful sponsor, and for whatever reason, God put it on my heart to start this podcast, and then I've got these people coming to me from all over the country and all over the world, and they're bringing um, it is such a parallel path to what I know in the 12 steps. It's these different things that are all, it's kind of like the oneness deal. It's all really the same but core principles, the same foundation. There may be different tools that help you process through stuff because, we practice forgiveness. I didn't know how to forgive, but we have a piece in the 12 steps that allows you to teaches you to practice that and learn it. And then, over time, I walk with a heart of forgiveness most of the time, and
it's
that's
a
a good place to
process.
be. Yeah, it's a
Jesus
process.
says 70 times 7 or something like that. You
Yep.
forgive.
And it's
So,
the and it seems that humans, we need to like attach metrics onto stuff like IQs and like this other stuff. And when we're doing business, we have charts and we look at our progress,
uh-huh.
and it just hadn't really dawned on me. And the term, the emotional intelligence, is I've heard that Bill Wilson, the co-founder of Alcoholics Anonymous, wrote an article once called Emotional Sobriety, and it's a pretty popular thing, and he gets into that because he's been sober 15 years or so, and he got the big monkey off his back or whatever, but yet there was still this thing that was lacking in him that he was
Uh-huh.
looking into. And it's a really nice, you can Google Bill Wilson or AA
Yeah.
emotional sobriety and find that article where he talks about that. And they've got emotional anonymous meetings too, because there's over 100 groups using the 12 steps as a foundation for what they're doing. And it's really
Yeah.
was, I think I'll go out on a limb a little bit that, there's a term called a mutual support group. So, if you have cancer, you can meet with these other people that have cancer and they understand what you're doing. And I think Alcoholics Anonymous is really probably the root of that kind of thing where now that you've, dealt with your affliction, when other people have it also, you are in a better place to be able to help them. Now,
Yeah, and
we
we know
we
that we're in a group and we have that sense of support and we make a statement to others. It gives us strength.
Yep.
And
And somebody in here can share some strength so we call it experience, strength, and hope.
yeah.
ESH. And it's because somebody in here has gone through what I'm going through. It may not be my sponsor, it may not be my person or whatever, however it works out. But Joe over there might go, hey, I've been through that and I can share some stuff with you.
Yeah, so
And
we
that
feel
gives you
our
that.
interconnectedness. It overcomes our loneliness. It gives us hope.
He
And
made it through. I can make it through,
yes, it gives us
and
faith and trust in ourselves. Yeah,
yeah,
that
but
it's possible.
putting a metric on spiritual intelligence is like that's a new concept for me. I just hadn't dawned on me. I was going to tell you, as you were saying it, my mind was saying like, well, how do you measure that? How do you measure that? How do you put a number on it? And is it really good
Well,
to
it's
put a
not a
number on
question
it?
of a number, So yeah. So let me explain. What is emotional intelligence, just by analogy, quickly. So emotional intelligence was a concept put forth by two academicians, Solovey and Meyer, in 1990. Up until then, we used to think there's emotion and there's reason. And if
Hmm.
I asked you, do you know people in your life that are emotional? You might think of some people, but I'm not sure it would be necessarily the highest compliment. Maybe they're prone to drama, whatever. But if I say to you, do you know some people that are emotionally intelligent? You might think of a different set of people. And then because emotional intelligence bridged the gap between emotion and reason. And it's like, so what is it specifically? It's the ability to be aware of and draw on emotional resources to help ourselves in daily life. That's what emotional intelligence. I'm just using kind of a common, layman term. So by analogy, what is spiritual intelligence? It's the ability to draw on spiritual resources and qualities in daily life. And so what are these spiritual qualities? So again, I'll just stop there. Emotional intelligence, ability to be aware of and draw on emotional resources. Spiritual intelligence, the ability to be aware of and draw on and embody spiritual resources. So, what are those spiritual resources? And these are common qualities that have been hailed by all the world's traditions for thousands of years. So I interviewed people from Buddhism and Hinduism and shamanism and Judaism and Hinduism and Christianity and Islam and all the world's traditions. I had 71 spiritual leaders, and I had at least 4 from each major tradition in the world that,
Wow.
that you have heard of. And to see now, regardless of their theology of cosmology, some people talk about God, or if you're in the Christian faith, you believe Jesus was the Messiah, or if you're a Muslim, you believe Muhammad was the final prophet, or if you're a Buddhist, you believe there's no self and the Buddha was enlightened, or whatever it is your belief system. They're talking about purpose and service and gratitude and forgiveness and compassion and trust and humility. So these, we call them virtues, right? So these have been talked about for thousands of years by the sages, by people that have studied the human condition. Now, what is exciting these days is you have this new field called positive psychology that started by people like Marty Seligman that said, hey, we don't want to just study human illness and disease and psychological pathology like anxiety and depression and addiction. We want to study optimal human functioning and what are the qualities that people cultivate. So they talk about forgiveness and hope and trust and transcendence and humor and joy and humility and service and purpose. So you've got these ancient traditions for thousands of years have been talking about these virtues. Now you have this positive psychology coming in and saying these are positive human qualities. They call them character strengths and values in action. So as you said, you can come at it in different ways. You can use different language, but it's pointing to the same thing. But the important thing about spiritual intelligence is to differentiate it from spiritual belief. So I may believe in higher power, or I may believe in angels or the afterlife or whatever it might be. But, how do I behave day to day in my team meetings at work? Do I let my ego get the better of me and I want to show myself right? Do I get competitive with my colleagues when they say, oh, they got promoted? I feel jealous and competitive with them, or do I sincerely happy to celebrate for them?
Yeah. Right.
So, and then when I'm driving on the freeway, do I feel like, okay, I am in this piece of metal like a tank and I'm separate and we're competing with each other, who gets on the freeway, who gets off the freeway? I forget my interconnectedness. I forget my oneness. So it's not about belief, it's about embodiment in daily life. Or I can have a spiritual experience. I go to church on Sunday and I pray and I have a beautiful moment of connection. Or I walk in the forest and I feel one with the trees and nature. But then again, how do I relate to my family and my children? And so it's the embodiment of these qualities that we're talking about, like forgiveness and service and compassion, that spiritual intelligence is about. So when you look at it that way, it bridges the gap between the spiritual and the practical. Most people think, oh, spiritual is woo-woo,
Yep.
oh, it's but we do have a culture that's based on science and based, show me the research. And you and I know that when you practice forgiveness, you're happier and you're less likely to fall off the horse and revert back to,
Old behaviors and old
all
patterns.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's
That's
where
it's
the
just how you
science
practice.
comes, huh?
Yeah. This is, we say we practice these principles, and each step has an underlying principle under it. forgiveness, brotherly love, service, compassion, honesty, integrity, these
Yeah.
kinds of things, the kind of joke around is like when the big super church out the road, everybody goes in there and they're all worshiping together, man. But when they get out in the parking lot and try to fight their way out of that, people honking horns and flipping birds, and it's like, hold on a minute, that doesn't
Yeah,
look
exactly.
like what we were trying to do when we were inside there.
Yeah, so what's
Yeah,
the point? I mean, then it's actually lacking integrity. And I'm glad you mentioned integrity and honesty, and some of these are some of the other qualities in spiritual intelligence. So yeah, we can go into church and worship and whatever and feel good, but unless we then go
what
live those principles,
yeah,
and
what's
it's a
your walk look
practice.
like?
Huh?
What's your walk look like? What do you look
Yeah.
like when you're out here? And we all see that too, and then it took a while. I was blind to this for a good portion of my life and seeing people, but I had hints of it because I had been around some, just for lack of a better way to say, some real solid people, and I could feel their energy, and it was something attractive to me. They were just projecting compassion, and they were helpful to you, and you could feel that. And I actually, from a long time ago, when I'm around people like that, I will actually get a physical response. I get like tingling up the back of my neck and into my skull sometimes. Not all the time, but at times. And I can cast back and remember that happening from a time I guess, when I was 18, 19 years old. And there was an old tool and die maker at a place I first worked at. And he was also a preacher on the weekends. And I wanted nothing but to be close to him, and I wanted to be assigned to help him. I wanted to be the guy because there was something about him that drew me to him, and he had all that stuff that you were saying, and it was a energy he carried with him. And since then, I see that in people, quite a few people that are in recovery, that I know that you just feel that feeling. And like the flip side of that is when you're out in the world and doing stuff, sometimes you bump into people that I want to run from. You feel that they're just a chaotic energy coming off of them. They're not, they don't have this spiritual intelligence, and it's not a,
They're not embodying these qualities, and you feel the lack of integrity, and it's like, yeah, and it's like they're energy suckers instead of emanators, instead of radiating light. They're
yeah.
they're vampires of so yeah.
And
But
I don't think it's their
now we
fault either. I don't cast that at them. Something that's more than likely, at least from my understanding or my thought of it is that, you know, well, we have a little thing in our my sponsor and I are doing something where we're trying to offer the 12 steps to anybody that wants it. You don't have to be an addict, alcoholic, gambler, overeater. If you could just be that you're just not real happy right now, and maybe you want some tools and try something new, we're offering that. And we've got people coming in and into our meetings and doing that. But the concept of, that you were born pure and perfect, and you come out and the world starts stepping on your spirit as you get into school and you get into peers, and maybe you had some crappy parents and they're the ones responsible for one or both of them for stepping on your spirit, or some kid down the street, or various things that happen to us. And then we come popping out of this thing and like into adulthood with all this basically trauma, this baggage. And because that's so heavy, I don't have any room for this other piece of
Yes,
good.
I
And
resort to
when people,
spirits.
yeah,
When my spirit is broken, I resort to spirits.
yeah, right, yeah. Carl Jung said that that at least that's where I saw where he made the
Yeah, I
connection
heard it.
between,
I'm not the one to make this play on words, but yeah.
yeah,
But just rewinding for 1 second what you said when you stood next to that guy and who was a preacher on the weekend and was we now understand some of the science. We have this thing we call mirror neurons. And when I am next to someone, my there's mirror neurons that are firing in my brain based on what's happening, and it's even happening with other primates like monkeys. A monkey that is watching another monkey eating a banana, and you hook them up to a thing, their brain centers light up in the same way the other monkey is eating the banana. How it's
huh,
happened, it's totally mysterious. We don't know the
yeah,
mechanism. Is it electromagnetic? How? But human beings are so, you walk into a home, a house, and you don't see anything, but you later find out that some person was sad or angry. You feel the energy. You feel the energy.
Yeah,
And
I do. The residual energy left behind. In a couple of weeks, it'll be the 11th men's retreat that I'm hosted out. I got 54 acres out in the country up against Hoosier National Forest, and some 10 years ago or so, I started hosting men's retreats out there, and I get 20, 30 guys that come out there and spend the weekend with me, and we have big bonfire, swim in the pond, fish, and we do work too. We do 12-step work. We have meetings, and we meditate, and we have a swath. We'll have people there that are brand new, and we'll have people there that are veterans. They've been around for a little bit, so it always ends up being a great mix. But it's left over me doing that over the years. It's left some energy there that's residual, and people feel it when they walk on. They're like, "Oh, wow, this place, there's something about this place. I also do my fifth steps down there. That's the kind of the confessional type of thing where I take a
uh-huh.
guy down there and do that. But it's
Well,
interesting. It's one
it's
of
a
the
great
very
tip.
palpable things that I feel where that residual energy gets left behind, and you can feel it. It's palpable.
Yeah, well, you walk into a church, you can feel the
Feel
energy.
it. Yep.
You walk
Yep.
into a forest, you feel a different energy. So yeah, and you just mentioned confessional. I think that's a super important step because part of what we need to work through the traumas is has to do with the shame we take on from all the stuff. And so unless we get that brotherly acceptance and love that says, okay, yeah, you did this thing, but I still accept you. You're
Yep.
still
Or,
at your
that happened to
core.
me too, or I did it too.
Yeah.
There's so
And so
many
you
times in that is
normalize it.
that, yeah, rarely does a guy bring me something that's new to me. I've been through a lot of the same things you have, brother. And
Yeah.
it normalizes and it
That
wipes away
shame.
that energy that's attached to it, that attachment to these things that they either had happened to them or that they happened to somebody else.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
it is.
Beautiful.
It's one of my favorite things to do. Well, it is. It's the most fulfilling thing I do in my life is to walk a guy through these 12 steps to watch where they come from because they'll always show up beat up. They're a mess. They're losing everything. They're probably unemployed. The wife is either left or planning to, threatening to. There's all kinds of legal issues. There's all these. The book says problems pile up so deep that they could hardly believe to solve them all. And then we will do this work and we don't do anything to fix any of that stuff. But I'm watching it's what happened to me when I showed up. I was looking at 6 to 20 years in the Indiana Department of Corrections when I wandered into AA, and I didn't spend a day in jail. And I can't chalk it up to anything else than this. When I got connected to this power took care of me. I don't know what else happened because the courts didn't care that I was sobering up and going to AA and all that. They didn't care. I'd committed a crime and they were there to punish me for that, hold me accountable for that crime. And then the evidence started piling up, and this was happening, and that was happening. And the evidence piled up so deep I couldn't deny it anymore. Of these, what I say miracles, miracles
Yeah.
were happening around me that I couldn't put a, oh, here's why that happened, or okay, this happened because of this. I didn't know why it was all happening, but I was
Yeah.
walking a
But you
different
started to
walk,
get traction, but you didn't rest on your laurels. You kept working
kept
yourself.
going. Yeah.
So it's like, you don't just read or hear about spiritual intelligence. You don't just hand someone the 12-step workbook manual, which I understand is pretty thick, and they read it and they're done. No, it's hard
No,
work. It's
lots of
like
people
you
try to
don't
read it.
become, huh?
And you can't just read it. It's a book that somehow is formatted where you must have a guide to take you through it and interpret it for you. I
And then
don't
you
think,
got to do the practices. You
and
got
then
to
you
go
have to do the
through
work,
you got
do the
to
work.
go through all the people you need to forgive. You got to go through your, pile of stuff that
Yep.
you've
Write
locked
down
up.
your whole inventory
Yeah,
and look at
yeah.
your
So
life and all this
it's
stuff.
like
And
you can't get physically fit by reading a book about physical fitness. You got to
yep.
go work out in the gym or in
Yeah.
the
Or you don't get it
wherever.
by sitting in the lobby at the gym either. You can go to the gym and sit in the lobby. Even your muscles are not going to get any bigger. You got to get in there and pump some
Yeah, so
iron
you
and
got
do
to work
something.
your muscles, and it's an ongoing process. So, like you
It's
said,
so intangible, and that's what, it's tough for people to see that it will actually benefit them, like we need to like see that this is going to help me, and if I can't like, now I have an unbelievable men's home group and it's like an unfair advantage. I bring you to my home group and I show you these men and you see them smiling and they'll share with you what's going on in their lives. And that'll give this guy some hope that, oh, these guys got, if this worked for these guys, and then you hear where they came from too, there's
Yeah, so
needle
you need to
needle
give him that
junkie.
vision. You got to give him that vision, that role model that it can work. The only thing I would add to that though is part of the challenge is we live in a culture where people are give me a pill, give me a quick fix. And
Yep.
the 12 step program, the cultivating your spiritual intelligence is not it's not a quick fix. It's not like,
No.
okay, come to my group one weekend and you'll be fixed. No, it's
Nope.
like
Nope.
you gotta dig through, and often there's painful memories and lots of stuff that you have to be willing to look at that shadow material in your life
Yeah.
and own responsibility. And so many of us are would much rather blame others. I did it because this and that, but we disempower ourselves.
Yep. The
And but
victim
you, huh? Yeah, we
or
play
the
victim.
victim, and
So
these various things that we do to I see this, I visualize it, that a guy's he's blocking and parrying, he's got a shield on one arm and his sword's in the other one, and I'm trying to offer him stuff, and he's
yeah,
not letting any of this stuff I'm trying to offer him in. He's, no, that won't work for me, and here's why, and you don't understand because this happened, and all this
yeah.
business, and then breaking down that wall. And then the other thing is that uh most people that come in here have had some kind of, frankly, spiritual trauma of some sort, whether if it's perceived or real. Uh, I don't know, but they will come in with that block that's like something that, okay, I hear you talking and I see these guys, but this whole God thing I can't get with, or this
Higher power.
spiritual
Well,
thing,
that's yeah, I
this
was gonna
higher
go
power
there.
thing I can't get to this, and they'll put up the wall against that. And I love to do that because that's not a problem. This is not about that. And you kind of trick them in a way. You say, just walk with me. We don't have to worry about that stuff, and we don't. But as you work this stuff, it just happens. And I don't have to
Yeah,
do anything. And the next thing you know, they're going, you remember when I told you, yeah, I remember when you were sitting over there
yeah,
batting God around and saying there ain't no God and then da 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 da. Now look at you. You just said a prayer with me and you led it.
yeah. Beautiful, beautiful. But yeah, I mean, the thing about it exactly, I wanted to highlight that is, and so we have the thing about I want a quick fix. The other thing is we have our human ego, and our
Yeah.
human ego is like, but it's hard for our human mind to grab this idea that my greatest power comes from surrendering to a greater power, and it's like, we live in such an individualistic culture, and I'm a self-made man, and I gotta pull myself up by my bootstraps, but to surrender to a higher power, I mean, that's terrifying. That's like death. If I take myself to be a self-contained, isolated individual, to surrender to a higher power that I've never seen or can touch or whatever, is terrifying. It's like
It
it's
is.
ego's death.
Yeah.
And so it's not so easy, but
No,
you
it
take a
isn't.
step towards God and God makes 10 steps towards you. So you
Yeah.
just start forgiveness, and then, maybe you feel forgiven, and then you learn to forgive others, and then you feel forgiven. And then you feel like, okay, there's grace. There's grace working, I'm
Yeah.
not,
And
uh,
we get it demonstrated to us, because I have a distinct formula for going out and making amends, and it's safe. And I can tell the guy, okay, here's what we're going to do, and I can walk him through it. And we write a script so he's got his ducks in a row when he goes and does the work, and we've done work around it. We've taken action and we've done work around it. And then when we go present this to the people are not used to people coming and owning their stuff. Ultimately, I think that's all they really want most of the time. They just want you to own it and they're
yeah,
happy. But they end up getting this forgiveness from these people, and these people end up being proud of them for what they're doing, and they're shocked, and then that feeds that, and that big snowball just
creates a
continues to roll,
connection. And
man. And friendships are reestablished, and even with our parents and workplaces and former workplaces, I've just watched so many miracles come off of those amend processes but man,
but
guys are
then again,
scared to do it.
that requires the vulnerability to go
It
and
does
admit I
a
made a
great deal of it.
mistake. And again, that what fights us against that is our ego. No, I
Yeah.
don't want to own my mistakes. They're to be blamed, but but that's disempowering again.
Yep.
So I mean, our ego is just we have to work with that.
Yeah. Yep, yep, it is. It's our biggest hamper, I think. It's the thing that holds us back more than anything else. It's what ego death, and I'm not sure it actually can ever actually die, but you can kind of arrest it.
Well,
I
I
feel
can
like,
relax. You could
yeah,
just watch it, and so it's not driving the bus,
right,
and
yeah,
you see it for what it is. It's actually trying to make us feel good about ourselves because we feel lacking and deficient at our core. Then we need all the stuff around it. Okay, I made so much money, or I had sex with so many women, or I got so many Instagram followers or Facebook likes, and that makes me feel good about myself because at my core, I feel shame and worthless. So the ego is like trying to boost us. But, it's a fool's gold. It's not the
yeah,
real thing. It's like making a deal with the devil. It's like the devil makes you feel good in the short run, but gets us in deeper boo-boo in the long run. That's what the ego does. It's kind of it wants to help us feel good about ourselves, but the way it goes about it is not very helpful in the long run.
yeah. It ends up being cross purposes. It's you just talk about the quick fix thing. I mean, that is exactly because alcohol works good and fast. And
Yeah,
so do drugs, man. That stuff works right soon. It's just a
yeah,
few
except
minutes
you
and
got to
you
take
get your
more and
relief.
more.
Yep, yeah, it doesn't, and then we get here and again, this big lighter society that I want it quick and easy. And when it ain't that way, I will throw up my hands. And this whole thing about this surrender thing where I've got to, just surrender to win and let go of the steering wheel and let somebody else have it. And it's like, how can I do that? There's a wonderful line in a big book that says, I'm the victim of the delusion that I can rest, satisfaction, and happiness if I just manage well. If I just try hard enough, surely I can get this going if I just turn the knob a little bit this way, or oh nope, this way, and constantly trying to dial in things and manage our lives. And like today is so great because you know I've let go of all that. I really don't do much to make anything happen anymore. It just kind of, I do the next right thing. I walk this walk and I just stumble upon good stuff as I'm walking. Uh, I now continue to work. I continue to do the service. I continue to practice the principles, but it's
Mhm.
become a lot easier. There's another line that says, we tried to find an easier, softer way and avoided the work. That's what that means. We was trying not to do the work. We wanted to find an easier way to get what these guys have got. And there isn't. In fact, this is the easier, softer way. I found it. It's doing this work, and it wasn't easy all the time. It's not.
Yeah, well, I imagine. So how many years did it take you to really feel? I mean, I know it's a lifelong journey, but I mean, to kind of
So,
crack the core of it.
yeah, I stumbled into AA in 2011, and I got a year of sobriety, and I threw my arms up like I'd won the race. I'd got the certificate on the wall, the guarded the wonderful 1 year, and I started finding other things to do. I was having, we used to call it, back problems. I started getting everything back. She was happy again. The job was happy again. I got my stuff back and I quit doing it. I put down my tools and I got caught just like everybody else did. So I relapsed. And that's when I ended up 4 years later staring at that judge down there. So that's the way it started. And then, and it was pretty rough then. But then when that old thing about when the student is ready, the teacher appears, that happened to me. And I found Christopher. And that was in 2000, late 2014. And I'll just be honest with you. I had 9 years of sobriety, and it caught up with me again last year. And right last night, I got a 30-day chip. So it got me, and it was amazing. And I'm trying to get to the bottom of how it did. One thing I'm doing is I just got right back up and got to doing what was working because that's what happened. I did it again. I kind of
Hmm.
somehow or another, and relapse is a piece. It can be a piece of recovery. This stuff is not in remission forever. It's a little bit like cancer in a sense. You can put it in remission, but it's not promised not to come back. And alcoholism addiction is the same thing. And unfortunately, a lot of guys that get a little bit of time another thing a book says is sometimes people choose to take the supreme sacrifice rather than come back and own that they've messed up, that they fell again.
Yeah.
I was listening to a meditation the other day, and a line just hammered me. It said, "What happens? Well, perhaps this setback is your sacred reset." And as I look at this, I do have to believe that there's something behind this. I'm to learn something from that process. That's why it happened. And now my job is
Yeah.
to look into that and stuff. But so I've been around recovery for about 15 years, and I almost made it to 10 once, and now I'm starting over again. And that was
Yeah.
humbling
But
to
I
go
so
into my men's
appreciate,
group,
huh?
go into my men to go. I said it was humbling to go into my men's group and go up there, and we do. Our group does it on Zoom, and because we lived through COVID and we were on Zoom exclusively for a few years. And then when we went back to in person, we kept a Zoom. So we do it like in concert. There's guys that are in hospitals or work second shifts and stuff like this, and they can join the meeting online if they can't make
Yeah.
it there in purpose. So we have a chair up in front because we have a microphone so those people can hear. So to walk up and sit down on that chair and admit that I failed, but I'm back up again and get the white chip, the silver chip, the 24-hour chip, and begin the process again. And I've
It
started,
took a lot of courage and vulnerability.
it was hard. It
And
was really, really hard.
uh-huh. But I want to say one of the things I often tell my clients and stuff, and also people, one of the issues we deal with in spiritual intelligence is developing presence and being mindful and present because so much is competing for our attentions from social media and text messages and the rest of it. So how do we, whether it's at work or in our relationship, really be present with people and have our attention? So one of the things people use to practice is meditation. And in meditation, your mind is like we have this monkey mind. It constantly, wanders off, but you got to come back. And I think I'm just thinking of that as like, yeah, you fall off the horse, you slip back, but you build a muscle to come back. And that's how meditation works. You catch
Exactly.
yourself veering off, you get back on. And the more you do that, the faster you get, and then you don't veer off as far.
Right. Yep.
And
And I didn't veer off real far, and I never even stopped working my program. I was sneak drinking, and I was still sponsoring guys and doing this. But what happens is it's progressive and it catches up to you. You think you're just going to have a little bit, and you do, and you try to manage it, and it just catches up. And before long, I was drunker than a monkey, and showing up to a meeting like that. And I got out of my car and I said, "What the f am I doing?" And I got in my car, I drove to my sponsor's house and texted him from outside and told him the truth. And man, when I sent that text and texted him, man, it just like, oh, okay, cool. It's out. It was like shedding a big heavy coat or something. And
yeah, because when we're living a lie, it's like, so, it's some part of us, as much as we deny and we try to pretend, we're not living in alignment with truth.
yep,
And, truth is one of the names of God in,
yeah,
in certain traditions. In Judaism, which is where I come from, I think also in Islam, truth in Judaism is the seal of God.
yep.
And
You can't live
so
that double life like that. It
yeah,
just
and
eats at you
Jesus
and you
said, "You
can't do
shall
it.
know the truth, and the
And
truth
truth
will
just
shall
sets
set
free.
you free." Of course, that's so
Yeah. And my
basic. But when
sponsor was
we're,
so great,
huh?
yeah, my sponsor was so great too, and he walked me up into his apartment, got me a blanket and a pillow and something to drink, put a bucket next to me in case I had to throw up, and was just so warm and safe and inviting. It's another thing that can happen because I didn't get that reaction necessarily from everybody. Some people were casting stones at me because I had the disease caught up with me again, like it was my fault or like I'd been a
Yeah,
bad
so
bully,
they
and I deserved some
excommunicated
punishment.
you.
Yeah, some of them did.
Yeah,
Yep. And
and that's
and
painful. But
it is.
they're not helping themselves. They're not helping you,
Yep.
and they're
Yep.
not really following the 12 steps. And
It
they're not.
gave a big chance for a big lesson. My sponsor talked about it in depth another night in the meeting about, what do we do when our friends slip? Is that what happens when you do? What do you want the reaction to be when you need to come back? Do you want it to be warm and inviting and safe and supporting and loving? Or do you want people to cast you aside and, make you feel like you're not welcome? Think about that, because long-term sobriety is not typical. There's not that many people that get the kind of years my sponsor has at 41. He got sober at 22. So that's also unusual. But yeah, so it was a lesson for the group too, and I certainly didn't want to be the one to be the part of that lesson, but I saw some things happening
Well,
that go, okay,
there's
cool.
always a silver lining.
Yeah, if you look
You
for it.
learned a lesson, maybe the community learned a lesson. So,
Yeah. So anyway, and so I don't know, my first 5 years was such an upward trajectory that it was like being on a roller coaster, man. And it was all the good parts of the roller coaster ride. Good things were happening just over and over. Yoga teacher training. I'm a certified yoga teacher. I went to, I was doing all these things to grow. Those things were like leveling me up in probably raising my spiritual intelligence. These things that I was doing, I was joining it. I was involved in another men's group. And then in about 5 years, I felt like a plateau kind of, where it leveled off a little bit. And I kind of just chalked that up to, hey,
but I mean,
it can't be like this forever. It can't be.
well, we have to ask your higher self and spirit to tell you what is the next step in my growth.
What's
Where is
next?
my
Yep.
next edge? Because,
And I kind of rested on my laurels a little bit, and and it didn't look like it, and it didn't feel like it, but like looking back, so much of life happens in the rearview mirror, right? You don't see it when it's sitting there happening to you, but when
yeah,
you
it makes
turn
sense.
around and you look at it and you go, oh, okay, I kind of, and that's kind of the phase I'm at right now. I'm kind of some things are becoming clear about
Yeah,
what
yeah,
happened.
yeah. So, I mean, it's delightful to see the parallels between what I'm talking about, spiritual intelligence, and what you're talking about. Slightly different language, but I think we're fundamentally talking about the same principles of hope and forgiveness and trust and,
Yep,
uh,
it's what's in all. A friend of mine, here's another thing. When I got here and some stuff, I had a lot of confusion about religion and stuff, and thought that I had to like choose one, and I didn't know who was right. These different people were, and I thought, and I don't feel like doing the work to figure out who's right. Uh, and a guy in recovery had said to me, and he just said something, and I just offhand, I heard him talking, and he said, "Well, I try to draw from all the ancient spiritual teachings." And oh, you can do that, huh? uh, and it touched me. And if you do, and you look at it, and like you said, if you've studied and you've talked to, did you say 40 different or 80?
71.
71. Okay. All that probably, well, I'm gonna guess when you found it, they're all parallel paths pretty much. There's some excursions in one and another here and there about the way they do things or the way they think about a certain thing. But if you would like shave it all down to the basic core of it, it's all the same.
Well, the same principles, the same core values. Yeah.
Yeah. Different tools, different language, different things like that. But yeah, we're all, that's a great thing, because that gives us all so many different avenues. If this one is not resonating with you, maybe this one will, or maybe that one will, or
Yeah.
and then coming up with other stuff like what you're bringing to the table too. Somebody can hear you, somebody
Yeah.
will hear your voice, and they'll grow as a result of that, where when they hear me, they can't, and vice versa.
Yeah. So it's been delightful, Dan. I'm wondering, is there any like final question or topic you want to touch on before?
So we'll see the book back there, Spiritual Intelligent Leadership. Um, and I'm certain it can be found wherever books are found, right? Is there someplace in particular you would tell
No,
people to
anywhere.
go?
It's available in hard copy. It's available as ebook. It's available as an audiobook.
Is it
The main
audiobook
thing,
too?
there's an
I
audiobook where
like that.
I narrate it. So
Oh, do you? Very cool. I
if
think
you
that's a
like
great
my
thing.
voice, if you don't hate my voice, and
There's
then
something
I
about the
guide.
author reading it. There's some integrity and some authenticity about when the author reads their work. I believe it helps me.
I liked reading it and I wanted it to be my voice. But the main thing also I just want to say about the book is, it talks about leadership, but the principles are we're all leaders in our families, in our communities, and the principles are the same. You in order to lead anybody else, you have to lead yourself. You have to find your inner compass, your inner North Star. And so it's not just a theoretical book. And like we were saying, there are workbook exercises for each quality for people to work. So it's not like a book you read it and you're like, okay, I'm spiritually intelligent. No, you have to do the
More like a
practice.
workbook kind of thing. Yeah, it's got
Yeah, so it,
tools.
it has tools and practices and exercises. So I would recommend, it's not the kind of thing you read over one weekend or one week even. It's just like you take each quality and you work it for a week or a month, like I assume in the 12 step. I don't know, you
Yeah.
guys, each step you
Yep. Same
work.
thing. Yep. Yep.
Uh,
Exactly.
uh,
And
so,
that's the thing that I also see that lacking in a lot of people, and I don't have to be careful. Um, I can't, some people are offering stuff, but they don't like have tools to get there. And I don't understand how you get to, I don't know how that works. I love to hear that you've actually got exercises and tools. That's what the 12 steps does. And I'll tell you one thing too. You said it's a big book. It looks like a big book,
uh-huh,
but the first 164 pages are the 12 steps, which is really only this much of that book is the 12 steps.
uh-huh.
The rest of this is stories in the back. So that's pretty concise, that's not a whole 164 pages ain't a whole lot.
Not
It
much,
looks
yeah.
like a big
But
book.
it's in doing those each step will, if you do a journal or
Yeah.
whatever,
Yeah.
you
I
write.
always like to hold between really the meat and potatoes is in between step 3 and 9. And I'll hold those pages together and make my guy feel that and feel how little amount that really is. So he's palpable can say, oh, yeah, that ain't so much,
I could
because
do it.
it looks like a mountain that I can't possibly climb. What's another thing we do? We make mountains out of molehills, right? We go, that's too big a thing to do. I just loaded that on my audiobook. I hit about 100 audiobooks a year. Uh,
Wow.
I have a little handyman business, but I actually went back to work for my old employer. But when I'm handymaning, I just listening to books all day long when I'm not
Awesome.
talking to
Yeah,
people.
you keep
So I always
learning.
looking.
Use
Yep,
your body, use your mind, develop both.
yep, yep. Well, it's been a pleasure. I
Okay,
love
Dan, it's
meeting these
been
people that are
delightful.
forces for the good,
Yeah, and you are,
shining your
and
light.
I appreciate your light. I feel right now, right, your sparkle and your smile. It's been welcoming. It's been back and forth, and I appreciate the work you're doing and being of service and helping yourself and helping others. That's
Well, I
so.
feel the same way with you. These people that are out there, I have a great deal of respect for people that are taking their time because there's another line in the big book. It says a price must be paid. It's the destruction of self-centeredness. And by destructing that, the way I destruct that is by helping you and you and you and start putting my energy into you. When I put my energy into you, my life goes pretty good somehow. It's a neat thing. And we know the world sure needs it too. So
Thank you. Thank you,
there's a
Dan.
lot of suffering going on and a lot of strife and a lot of confusion and people need these tools.
Okay. Blessings to you and
And this will come out Sunday. I kind of do just in time delivery for my podcast. So
awesome. So just send me the
I'll
stuff and
I'll forward you the links on Sunday morning and don't let you get them early. You have to wait for them to come out. So
yeah,
Sunday I
yeah.
will send them to you when they come out. Yeah. But I always say a couple things at the end of this podcast. I try to remember to do it. I'm pretty good at it when I've got a 12 stepper sitting across the room from me. I always want to thank everybody. Well, first off, if you're not having a blast in your recovery, and we define recovery as to recover is to reclaim that which was lost or stolen. And at some level, I had lost myself, and some of it had been stolen from me. So in the process of recovery, I'm getting that back to find out who I really am, the real core, the essence of who Dan is, because that's what that power up there wants me to be. So if you're not having a blast doing that, you're not doing it right, in my opinion. And I just want to thank everybody out there for allowing me and Yosi to participate in our recoveries, because that's what we do here. We're trying to carry these messages out to the greater good out to the people. And I know that's in your heart, and that's what's in my heart. I do this for fun and for free. And I just want to see where I can plug in and serve my purpose here, which I believe is to help other people. And I know that's what you do too. So thank everybody for listening, and go out and get Yosi's book.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank
Blessings.
you.
Always try to be